It is midnight on the East Coast. Polls have been closed in Georgia for 5 hours, and here's where we stand. In the Georgia Senate runoff between incumbent Republican Senator David Perdue and Democratic challenger Jon Ossoff, it's 50-50. This race is officially too close to call per NBC News. There are very few votes between those two candidates. Again, 50.0 to 50.0 in the second Georgia Senate special runoff today between Raphael Warnock and incumbent Kelly Loeffler. This is too close to call, although Warnock leads. He's at 50.4 to Loeffler's 49.6. There are a difference of just over 35,000 votes between those two candidates. But again, the numbers here are astonishing in terms of their closeness. There are remaining votes still due to be reported. We're at 98% in. We're watching closely the counties that remain on our board with votes outstanding. Joy Reid, watching what we have seen over these past 5.5 hours since we have been here, the 5 hours since the polls closed, it has been a nail biter. I have no nails left. I didn't start with very many, but I have no nails left. It's very, very close. Obviously, Raphael Warnock's supporters have to be pleased with their position right now. Neither Ossoff nor Perdue supporters can be happy with their position right now, with them tied at 50-50. But a lot of the remaining vote does seem to be due from Democratic-leaning areas.
Yeah, and you know, the reality of the way American elections work is that the black towns come last. They come in last. You know, African Americans tend to live in cities, big cities, and in states like Georgia, they tend to have, you know, sort of the older machines, the sort of, you know, they're not given like the top equipment. It's difficult, right? Every sort of, you know, hurdle is sort of put before African-American voters, and then you tend to see the votes from these big cities, from cities that are very diverse, come in late. So that looks good in an election like this because you're waiting on sort of what's finally out there, what Steve has been telling us all night. You're waiting for the cities that are predominantly non-white, right? Or that at least have pluralities of non-white people in them, and that usually is good for Democrats. So I think, you know, the folks that I'm texting with in Georgia feel very good. The Democrats I'm texting with feel very good about where even Ossoff stands. They feel very confident. And I'll just read you one text from a Georgia Politico that they sent me, that if you think about the way that Warnock versus Ossoff are running, the point is that Warnock is running against an appointed senator, says this Politico, who has not distinguished herself in any positive way. And I will add, also attacked Ebenezer Baptist Church and the black church more generally. Perdue is an incumbent whose cousin was governor for 8 years. And black voters are powering the race. And also Warnock is an historic figure. If you go through it, there have only been 3 black United States senators from the South: Hiram Rhodes Revels and Blanche Bruce in the Reconstruction era, and Tim Scott. You know, there have only been 10 black senators, period, in the entire country, and only 3 from the South. So Warnock represented this opportunity to make history. And, you know, Kelly Loeffler is not really a Georgian person, whereas, you know, Perdue is harder to beat. You know, his cousin is the Secretary of Agriculture to Donald Trump, and Sonny Perdue is a very well-known politician who was former governor. So Perdue's just a harder person to beat. So I'm not surprised at the difference.
I think that also it was interesting that Perdue and Loeffler, for all the differences between them, including those important ones that you were talking about there, they were both tarred with the same brush for these twin runoffs with corruption problems. Both of them very, very wealthy. Both of them fairly credibly and substantively accused of having used their position in the Senate to make themselves richer, to make their people who they knew richer. The allegations against Perdue in particular, essentially insider trading allegations against him using non-public information that he got access to as a senator to make money for himself in the stock market. Those allegations, while some of them have been litigated and they've been the subject of ethics complaints and everything, I think those stuck to him. And it's a credit to the Ossoff campaign, I think, that Ossoff was able to get those things to stick to David Perdue because they weren't new. Those allegations against Perdue have been kicking around for a long time now, but Ossoff was able to get traction with them, I think, through a fairly disciplined campaign. And there's been a lot of criticism, we've heard a lot of it tonight, about how negative the campaign ads were and how negative the campaigns were by both candidates on both sides. But sticking some of this stuff to Perdue, who, as you say, it really is Republican royalty in Georgia, was no mean feat. It was a difficult thing to do because Perdue's a known quantity there.
And I have to say, too, you have to give Jon Ossoff the award for most improved candidate, because when he ran in Georgia's 6th district, which now actually this was Newt Gingrich's old district, right? And he lost. Lucy McBath, African-American woman, now represents that district. Just to show you how much Georgia is changing, you know, he didn't seem as effective as just a candidate. The way that he took Perdue apart in that first debate so badly that Perdue wouldn't debate him again. Like, not only would he not debate him again in the election proper, in this runoff, he wouldn't debate him at all. There was like an empty chair because he just destroyed the guy in the debate. So he's just become this like outstanding debater. And I think the buddy act between Warnock and Ossoff, the way they've run together in symmetry, they defend each other, they stand, you know, they have each other's back, and they ran as sort of like Ponch and John, or maybe I'm aging myself, Ponch and John.
Oh no, I'm right there with you.
Crockett and Tubbs, I'm still aging myself. You know what I'm saying? It worked.
No, it's good, and it's. But we are seeing. I mean, Warnock is in a better position right now than Ossoff is. That may be because of the relative strength of Perdue versus Loeffler. It may be because of the relative strength of Warnock and Ossoff and the kinds of Georgia roots that you're talking about. But there's less suspense tonight, right now, in terms of what's going to happen in the Warnock-Loeffler race. There's less suspense there than there is in that 50-50 race that we are seeing between Ossoff and Perdue. Joy, I want to bring into the conversation now our colleague Lawrence O'Donnell. Lawrence, I have a question for you, Lawrence, about whether there is a substantive and meaningful difference in the Senate if the Senate is divided 49-51, a normal split that doesn't require a tiebreak, versus a Senate that is 50-50 with the vice president tie-breaking. Is there any functional difference in terms of committee assignments or rules or the ways that the majority can wield its power?
No, there's no real functional difference. However, Rachel, there becomes a huge suspense difference, because it becomes possible in this environment, if there are, say, 51 Republicans, 49 Democrats, by the time the dust clears here, for any one of the Republicans to walk across the aisle and say, I'm going to vote for Chuck Schumer for majority leader. And that we've seen it happen before. Jim Jeffords did it in 2001. And the reason he left the Republican Party and went over and sided with the Democrats seems quaint today in a way that's unbelievable. He was objecting to the size of the Bush tax cuts. Not that there were tax cuts, but that they were too big and they were too irresponsible. And that was the straw that broke his back and made him cross the aisle. And we've seen it once or twice. We saw it once since then, actually, that moved the Democrats up closer to 60 votes. But that's the interesting suspenseful pressure that could occur if you only get one victory in Georgia tonight. But, you know, you would look at could Susan Collins follow in the Jim Jeffords shoes? That's probably doubtful. It's hard to see who that person might be on the Republican side. But whether you control the Senate with 50 senators plus the vice president or 51 elected senators, you get all the same powers of the majority.
Let's find out from Steve Kornacki if we are any closer to figuring out which of those scenarios it is going to be. Steve, we are still waiting for those same votes to come in, right?
Yeah, so we're trying to get a sense here exactly what is left. And I was just talking to our decision desk. They are trying to track down exactly what is left, exactly where it is left, how much of it's left, and what type of vote we're talking about here. So we're looking at a situation here where for this race right here, David Perdue, 1,888 votes. That his margin statewide over Jon Ossoff. Ossoff. In the other race here, this is the one where the Democrats right now have something of a pad. Raphael Warnock, 35,132. So he's been running consistently ahead of Ossoff. It's more than 35,000 vote difference between those two races. Now, what are the major sources of outstanding vote that we know of right now? Number one is DeKalb County. This is the biggest. We think there are about 20,000 votes, left to come in DeKalb County. We do not know. We're trying to find out. We do not know if we are going to get those remaining 20,000 votes. Some of them, all of them, none of them. We don't know if we're going to get that tonight. But the 20,000 votes to come from DeKalb County, we saw this earlier when we got that big batch of votes. It's going to be overwhelmingly Democratic. Exactly how overwhelmingly Democratic, I don't know. It's going to be 79, 81, 83, but it's going to be an overwhelmingly Democratic vote when it comes in. So about 20,000 votes there. Ossoff going to get the lion's share of them, certainly. Warnock is going to get the lion's share of them, certainly. And you can just see that alone could move Ossoff ahead of Perdue in the statewide count. Where else are we waiting for votes? Fulton County. What are we waiting on in Fulton County? We're trying to get an exact sense of what we're waiting on. One thing we know we are waiting on in Fulton County, though, we've talked about this a little bit, the mail votes that arrived today, the ones that were dropped off. They have those drop-off boxes, that you can take your mail ballot on Election Day, put it in the box. People who did that on Election Day, that still needs to be processed, tabulated, reported out. Is that something that's going to happen tonight, partially, entirely? Is that something that's going to wait till the morning? If it happens tonight, we get indications. I think it's going to be a little while on that. But again, how many of those votes are there? We're not sure. 5,000, 10,000, could it be somewhere in that range? Not exactly sure. But that vote, again, that's mail vote in Fulton County. That is expected to be heavily, Democratic vote. Also, the saga of Chatham County, where Savannah is. We have had, they're going to leave 20,000 votes. They're going to report them all out. There are still some votes. We think mail votes, probably 3,000. I'll call up the results that we have from Chatham County. We think there are about 3,000 mail votes left in Chatham County that they are not going to count tonight. So we got a big release from Chatham County a little earlier. We thought that might be all of the votes. It is almost all of the votes, but you can expect 3,000 more mail ballots. This is Savannah area. So again, mail ballots, Democratic. You can expect Democrats to make gains there. So DeKalb, Fulton, and Chatham County, Savannah, those are the biggest sources of outstanding vote. We're trying to get an exact accounting because there are, scatterings in different, some of these Republican counties have some outstanding vote, but it also what it looks like in these even Republican counties where you're looking at outstanding vote right now, it looks like you're generally looking at mail vote, early vote, mail vote, not the Election Day vote. The Election Day vote is the most overwhelmingly Republican in any county you're in. The Election Day vote's the most overwhelmingly Republican to the extent we're waiting on, a little bit from here, a little bit from there, from some of these red counties you see on your map. You're going to be looking at the least Republican vote from those counties. Again, we're trying to get, our decision desk is an exact accounting of which counties there are there, how many votes. But again, it's a small, individually, these are small numbers. Even if you add them together, DeKalb is going to be your biggest. Fulton, Chatham, scattering, provisional ballots. That's not something we're going to get to tonight, but there were 10,000 provisional ballots back in the November election. So, what are they going to be for this election? 7,500, 8,000, something like that. The provisional ballots breaking, about 2-1 for the Democrats, back in November. So again, that could be about 8,000 votes where the Democrats are netting more than the Republicans. So that is our sense right now, and we're trying to refine it. And I'm staying in touch with our decision desk here, but we see some significant sources of votes that remain on this map that are probably going to be very favorable to Democrats. We do not know if those places are going to report out tonight or if it's going to be into tomorrow. So we don't know if we're getting more votes. We don't know how many more we're getting. And again, the situation here is John Ossoff is trying to catch David Perdue in this count here. And if he does, or even if he doesn't, the issue here, too, is if it falls, if the final result falls within 0.5%, within 0.5% that could trigger a recount. So is Ossoff going to catch Perdue? Are we going to be inside 0.5 point there? And then this one, Warnock and Loeffler, this race, a little bit different dynamic here, where Warnock up 35,000 votes already. Also, like Ossoff, is waiting on some of these places that promise to deliver good votes for Democrats here in terms of what's left. Warnock with an opportunity to build on that, and potentially we will see his goal right now certainly would be to land in a place where not only is he ahead of Loeffler, but he's out of that recount zone when it comes to the vote with Loeffler, out of that 0.5% zone.
Steve, it seems to me that, I mean, that's a lot of detail, but it seems to me like you are telling a very coherent story here, which is when you talk about the bulk of the vote that's still to come in. DeKalb County, that vote's going to lean Democrat. Fulton County, that vote's going to lean Democrat. Chatham County, Savannah, that vote's going to lean Democrat. Provisional ballots, which we won't know about tonight, but ultimately those will likely lean Democrat. And other than that, there is a smattering of other vote likely to come in, but sort of just dregs, not numbers, not ballots that are expected to come in significant numbers, even if they do lean Republican. That sounds like a very unbalanced future in terms of what the rest of the ballots are going to be. Right?
Yeah, the hesitation here is just that I don't have an exact accounting of those smaller counties and exactly how many are left. So I would like to get sort of a cumulative total there to see exactly. But I think the expectation here is there aren't major sources of outstanding vote here in big red counties, and especially to the extent you have outstanding vote in these red counties, it doesn't look like it's the same day vote. And that's kind of the magic formula for Republicans. Get a Republican county and get the same day vote in it. That's where you kind of hit the jackpot as a Republican. There is one other category. I should point out there is one other category. And again, this is not one that comes into play tonight. There are military ballots as well. And we're trying to get exactly what to expect in terms of the military ballots. But there could be, about 15,000 or so military ballots. So that could also factor in, not something that would happen tonight. But yeah, I mean, again, look, there's almost two different stories here. I mean, look, will the Democrats win both races? But given how limited the number of votes are that are left in this thing, these races are kind of in different positions here. I mean, Warnock right now is trying to build a lead. He's trying to see if he can almost run away from Loeffler, with the votes that we're talking about here. 35,000 already ahead. Ossoff is trying to leapfrog Perdue and trying to land in a place where, he'd obviously like to be out of that recount zone. But if he finishes in front and ends up in a recount, he wants to be safely in front so that he could survive a recount potentially. But that's where that 35,000 or so vote difference between those candidates comes in.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break right now, Steve, in part because we are expecting remarks tonight from Raphael Warnock. Now, as Steve's been saying, he's ahead and is building a lead right now. We're not sure what we are expecting from Raphael Warnock, but we are told he'll be speaking shortly. We'll have that here for you live. We'll be right back on the other side of this break.
Come to no conclusions and have made no calls, but here is the situation in this race. Among our two close to call races, Warnock leads. You see the difference there. In the other race, the Ossoff-Perdue race, closer difference there, still too close to call. Those are the two races we're watching. And believe me, we are watching every incremental development. We are happy to be joined at this hour by the veteran Democratic strategist and notable introvert, James Carville. James, welcome. What do you think of what you see tonight?
I love it. I don't know if anybody with a political IQ above room temperature doesn't think we're going to win both of these races. So I'm very optimistic. I think it's a very great night for the country. But I want to point out one thing. Whitfield County is where Dalton is, where Trump went. My friend Chris Hutton pointed out to me that Ossoff ran slightly, ever so slightly, but better than Biden ran, and the turnout was lower than the state average. He came, he spoke, and he lost. He couldn't even help him carry Whitfield. I mean, he carried Whitfield County, but he didn't help him one lick. People are just going to have to get over it. This guy is a loser, and he's done. He'll cause inconvenience, but that's it. Democrats are going to win both of these races. And it's a great night for the United States, and I'm so happy for the people in Georgia.
If that indeed is the outcome, and I can't repeat enough times, we have reached no such conclusions, but this is just two guys talking. What will the lessons be to you?
First of all, I think that the attack on Warnock Church, it backfired. I think when political archaeologists unearth this, they're going to see that there was enhanced black turnout in non-metro Atlanta. And I grew up in rural Louisiana. I have some idea. I grew up in rural Louisiana. I have some idea of the importance that the black church plays in these communities. In rural Louisiana, I have some idea of the importance that the black church communities just unearth this. They're going to see that there was enhanced black turnout in non-metro Atlanta. And I grew up in rural Louisiana. I have some idea of the importance that the black church plays in these communities. And I grew up in rural Louisiana. I have some idea of the importance that the black church enforce the federal criminal law. I think that's very, very important to begin to restore some faith in our process here. That's a terrible thing, and I really hope that President-elect Biden has a very competent person who has great reverence for the federal criminal code.
And James, what about the fact that, let's say, again, for the purposes of conversation, the Democrats go 1-1 or even perhaps 2-0 tonight, the fact that it will be born into this world, into this environment of so much tumult. It is so toxic. Any victory by a party not named Republican will instantly be branded corrupt and fraudulent.
Well, you're going to have that. This is going to shake their confidence. That there's nothing more fun than watching the Republicans after they lose a race. You know, we lose and we go kumbaya, and Dukakis was a great guy, and poor John Kerry, and they should have, you know, Hillary should have answered the negatives or something. They go after each other with meat cleavers. And people have no idea of what's coming up here in the next couple of weeks in terms of the political discourse in the Republican Party. They're going to be like at each other's throats tomorrow. And they don't mind pointing fingers, and they're going to play the blame game left and right. And again, Trump didn't get it done. He lost. He came in, he put it on the line, didn't make it. Too bad. Out of here. And they're going to be trying to deal with him in any way, but I think we're going to see a real change in the way that the public looks at that, and we're going to see a real change in the way the Republicans look at this. He didn't get it done. He lost. And that's just a fact. And it is going to settle in the political community. It's going to settle in among Democrats. They're going to be less fearful. I think Warnock is shown, and Ossoff. I mean, you know, here we have an African American and two Jewish senators. Somebody texted me tonight and said, "Lester Maddox, I don't know what." You know, this is a great night for America. It shows that anybody in this country, and very demonstrably, has a place if they work hard and do it. I think this is a wonderful thing, and my hat's off to all of those, all of our Democratic friends in Georgia, and particularly these two candidates. They really stepped up and had real game here. They're really something to be proud of.
Final question. It has often been said in relationship guides, find someone in your life who looks at you the way Mike Pence looks at Donald Trump, and you'll be set up. You'll be in good shape. He has worked hard at being a supplicant. The president has now linked him to this action where normally his role would be, Michael Beschloss tonight compared it to Bert Parks. His role would be an MC. There's no heft to the role. There's no job to do. What does he do, knowing that he's now been kind of publicly threatened with political trouble going forward if he shows anything but steadfast loyalty to the boss? Well,
there's a story at the Times that he told Trump, "I can't do anything about this."
And Trump quickly put out a statement refuting it.
Okay, it was Maggie Haberman that did that story. I would bet anybody $1 to a donut that story is accurate. Maggie does not make mistakes. And he and Mother are going to go back to Indiana and hide. I mean, that's what's going to happen. I mean, this whole thing is falling apart right in front of our eyes, and it's just fun to watch. It really is. I'm immensely enjoying watching this entire meltdown. And these two people are going to do our country great in Washington, and we're going to move ahead. And Trump lost, and Pence knows it, and everybody knows it. And I seriously doubt that MAGA story is wrong. Seriously.
James Carville, our thanks, as always, for joining us. Great to hear your voice. Great to talk to you along the way. Another break for us. When we come back to Steve Kornacki. At the board we go, because the only thing we know about a night like this is every minute we're not looking at the board, there's little incremental numbers changes. There's one for you right now. We'll dive back in when we come right back.
Our special coverage of the Georgia Senate races tonight. We've got too close to call in both cases. In the Warnock race, the Raphael Warnock-Kelly Loeffler race, that race is being characterized by NBC News as Warnock being in the lead. But again, both are being described as too close to call. We've got 98% of the vote in. We are currently awaiting election night remarks from Raphael Warnock. Unexpectedly, Kelly Loeffler spoke a few minutes ago. We apologize for not bringing that to you live. We did not have advance notice that it was coming, and so therefore we didn't know that it had happened until it was already done. She made brief remarks in which she basically did not concede the race. Wouldn't necessarily expect her to. She's behind, though, by nearly 36,000 votes. She described herself as still having a path to victory. We'll see what Reverend Warnock says in his remarks, which are expected shortly. While we are awaiting those remarks, we're going to bring in back into the conversation, the chair of the Democratic Party in the great state of Georgia. She's also America's newest member of Congress, sworn in just 2 days ago for the seat in the U.S. House recently held by the late, great John Lewis. Congresswoman Nikema Williams, thank you so much for coming back with us tonight. I'm sure we are not keeping you up. I imagine you are bouncing off the walls.
I am still up, Rachel.
Congresswoman, actually, I have to interrupt you as soon as we started because Raphael Warnock has just begun his remarks. We're going to go to those live. We'll be right back with you on the other side.
Projects of Savannah, Georgia. Number 11 out of 12 children. A proud graduate of Morehouse College and the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church, the spiritual home of Martin Luther King Jr. and Congressman John Lewis.
Watching these remarks from Reverend Raphael Warnock, as you can see, it's frozen there. That's not on our end. That appears to be on the side of the feed. We're going to see if they get that reset on Reverend Warnock's side, on the side of his campaign, to see if we can get those remarks back up. Doesn't seem like we're going to. Okay, we still don't have it. We will go back to that if that restarts. While that is unfortunate, again, that feed appears to have frozen on the side of the Warnock campaign. We'll bring it to you if they get it restarted. This is how it goes. Apparently, it's just back.
Hard work and the people by our side, anything is possible. May my story be an inspiration to some young person who is trying to grasp and grab hold of the American dream. And so, Georgia, I am honored by the faith that you have shown in me. And I promise you this tonight. I am going to the Senate to work for all of Georgia. No matter who you cast your vote for in this election, in this moment in American history, Washington has a choice to make. In fact, all of us have a choice to make. Will we continue to divide, distract, and dishonor one another? Or will we love our neighbors as we love ourselves? Will we play political games while real people suffer? Or will we win righteous fights together, standing shoulder to shoulder, for the good of Georgia, for the good of our country? Will we seek to destroy one another as enemies or heed the call towards the common good, building together what Dr. King called the beloved community? Here's what I know. I know that we can beat this pandemic. with science and good old-fashioned common sense. I know we can rebuild a fairer economy by respecting the dignity of work and the workers who do it. An economy that honors those whom we now call essential workers by paying them an essential wage and providing for them essential benefits. And so to everyone out there struggling today, whether you voted for me or not, know this: I hear you, I see you, and every day I'm in the United States Senate, I will fight for you. I will fight for your family. To our supporters, our incredible campaign team, and to my family, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And to every Georgian who marched with us, organized with us, prayed for us, fought for us, believed in us, or shared their story and their pain with us. Thank you for all of your love and support. In the words of Dr. King, who grew up just a few blocks from where I'm sitting right now, we are tied in a single garment of destiny. We are caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I remember my dad in this moment. He used to wake me up every morning at dawn. It was morning, but it was still dark. It's dark right now, but morning comes. And Scripture tells us that weeping may endure for the night, but joy comes in the morning. Let us rise up, greet the morning, and meet the challenge.
Before we saw the audio glitch again, just as we saw the video glitch at the beginning, of the Reverend Raphael Warnock speaking right now at a time that NBC News has not called this race. The NBC characterizes this race as too close to call, with Reverend Warnock in the lead. He leads right now, by our count, at 35,702 votes, 98% of the vote in Georgia. But you heard him say there plainly, I am going to the Senate. He said, I'm going to the Senate to work for all of Georgia. Now, his opponent, Kelly Loeffler, tonight also made brief remarks to her supporters in which she said that she still to victory and that a lot of votes remain to be counted. So she's not conceding defeat. He is essentially claiming victory. This race remains to be called by NBC News, but Reverend Warnock is clearly in the lead. Still with us is Congresswoman Nikema Williams, who is the chair of the Democratic Party of Georgia. I'm so sorry for those technical difficulties and for having to interrupt you around that. But Congresswoman, let me just ask for your reaction to those remarks from Reverend Warnock and his performance tonight.
Rachel, I could not be more proud to be the chairwoman of the Democratic Party of Georgia. When people told us that Black voters would not turn back out to vote in a runoff, Democrats had never won a runoff. How are we going to get it done? I remember a conversation with Lawrence O'Donnell when I said, watch me work. Georgia Democrats have turned out and they have left it all on the field tonight. And there are more votes to be counted. I am so proud of the campaigns that my friends John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock ran, but I know that I firmly believe in every vote being counted, and so I'm watching the rest of these numbers, and we might have to celebrate with you tomorrow night.
Well, we are seeing, as I mentioned, in NBC News' characterization, they're describing Reverend Warnock as being in the lead in that race. It is 50-50 right now, as far as we can tell, between Perdue and Ossoff. At last call, it was less than just over 1,200, checking right now, just over 1,200 votes difference between Perdue and Ossoff, with a number of votes still to come in. Do you have confidence that John Ossoff is going to pull off that race in the end, based on the outstanding vote and where it seems to be coming from in the state?
I'm watching the clock just like you are and watching the map, and I've been watching Steve just like you, and I have my own little personal Steve. My husband has been tracking these numbers, and so I do have confidence that we're going to send 2 Democrats to the United States Senate, and we're going to get to work right away on behalf of Georgia people.
When Americans think about the change in fortunes that we have had politically over the past 4 years, from the 2016 election night when Hillary Clinton was expected by every pollster in the country to run away with that seat, to run away with the presidency, when instead Donald Trump won, when the Republicans had the Senate, Republicans held the House. We have now seen first Democratic presidential candidate since 1992 win in Georgia. We have seen Joe Biden and Kamala Harris make Donald Trump a one-term president. We have seen, apparently tonight, Georgia on its way to potentially elect 2 Democratic senators. I mean, so much of this fulcrum here has been in your state and has been on your shoulders as the chair of the Democratic Party. And among the shared work between you and your fellow organizers and Democrats, I mean, the country owes its change of fortune to your work and what you've been able to do. Do you have any way to share the secrets of your success with other organizers and activists in other states who want to do what you've done?
Rachel, this was a labor of love for so many people, and this is the result of deep organizing on the ground for cycle after cycle. It didn't just happen in this presidential cycle. It wasn't just about Donald Trump. And when I look at the people that 18 years ago, I moved to Georgia from Alabama and got started with the Young Democrats. And I've been involved in some form or fashion with the Democratic Party in this state for the past 18 years. And I was vice chair of this party and interim chair back in 2013 and came back as chairwoman in 2019, the first Black woman to ever chair our state Democratic Party. And I know that this victory belongs to so many people on the ground because I've been in the trenches with them doing the work cycle after cycle.
Well, when you said "watch me work" to Lawrence O'Donnell, looking ahead to these runoffs, I remember that moment, and we are watching you work. We have seen you do it, you and your colleagues pull off something of tremendous magnitude politically and in lots of other ways. Congratulations tonight. I know that there's a long way still to go before these races are home, but congratulations on what you've done thus far, Congresswoman, and congratulations on being sworn in. You're just going to have a tremendous year ahead of you.
Thank you, Rachel.
All right. Congresswoman Nikema Williams sworn in 2 days ago into the United States Congress. She will hold the seat that was once held by the late, great John Lewis. All right, we are going to take a quick break. While we have been hearing from Reverend Warnock, speaking with Congresswoman Williams, Steve Kornacki has been burning up several phones, and we're going to be talking with him about the outstanding vote that remains to be coming in and why the numbers keep shifting a little bit. Right now, as I am checking, it looks like the Perdue lead over John Ossoff is down to 1,100 votes. The Warnock lead over Loeffler is up to almost 36,000 votes. More details, more numbers with Steve when we come back. Stay with us.